A couple of you have already mentioned the gold card, and the gold card, I think we all know, is very prominent in the minds, particularly of prospective EB-5 investors today. With all of this uncertainty in EB-5 itself, many are asking, well, what is the gold card? Is that a better option for me and my family members? What is that about? How are the two programs different? When is it even coming online, and is it worth the wait? Because we're all talking about the pressures of wanting to file the case before September 30, 2026. So what do we think of this? Is this real? Is it going to happen? Is this good for investors? Ron, tell us, what do you think?
So I view the gold card as evidence of the fact that the administration could not get what they wanted, which was a $5 million something gold card, platinum card, for which the investors would not be taxed on worldwide income. They were not able to get that into budget legislation or anything else. And in the end, they came up with this, which I think is somewhat of a compromise, which is $1 million investment where you get no tax benefits. And I've already advised a number of people who are comparing this with EB-5. And, to be clear, I'm perfectly happy to do a gold card for somebody who wants it. But for almost everybody, I think EB-5 is a much better option than the gold card. I mean, let's start with the fact, Carolyn, you asked, when is the gold card happening? No one knows the answer to when the gold card's happening. There's no forms, there's no regulations, there's no adjudicators, we don't even know what agency's doing it. It might be the Department of Commerce. The chances all this is going to come together in the short term, pretty small in my opinion. So if you really want to do this, I'm not sure when you're going to be able to do it. Secondly, I think there's a very big chance that this will be challenged in the federal courts as being something you can't do by executive order and requires legislation and or regulation to do it. And I think there's a pretty good chance if there is litigation, it will be successful. So what does that mean? It means if one of my clients invests in a gold card and 6 months later, a federal court says that this is not acceptable, they're going to try to get a refund from the U.S. government. I mean, it's not a great situation. When I compare EB-5 with a gold card, Carolyn, EB-5 is 800,000 in most cases, gold card's $1 million. The investor is expecting and hoping, and usually will, if they choose a regional center like CanAm, they have an extremely good chance of getting their money back with some rate of return. On the gold card, they have zero chance. It's a donation that they're never getting back. With EB-5 on the reserve visas right now, we don't have a quota issue. If with a gold card, they're going to be put into EB-1 and EB-2, which already has either worldwide or certain country quota backlogs. And if you try to if there's really significant demand for the gold card, it will create much larger quota backlogs in EB-1 and EB-2. And so anybody who thinks this is going to be a quicker solution, I think that's wrong. And in the meantime, you've got these uncertainties with the gold card, and you've got the looming EB-5 grandfathering deadline of September 30, 2026. And I sure wouldn't want to invest in the gold card, find out after September 30 that it's shot down by a court. Now I'm no longer grandfathered for EB-5. So for all of those reasons, I think for most of my clients who are considering gold card and EB-5 is a much better answer.
Kind of the bird in the hand idea. Enrique, I think you have very unique perspectives on this and a knowledge as well. Is it the case, to start off, that the administration did try to get the gold card into a legislative vehicle and were unsuccessful? And then please pivot from there to what you think about the gold card.
Carolyn, going to the first question, there are rumors, as Ron has alluded to, that there was an attempt to get this into the legislation. The the reality is that though that may be an actual fact, is that there was a need for more time to be able to have the conversation in a meaningful way to get it in. So there's still time for us to see
Between
Congress.
the administration and Congress.
Exactly. An opportunity for them to work together. This is perhaps one of those inflection points in the history of U.S. immigration where it may be a shift from a job creation program, which is what the EB-5 program is. And I think we all need to really focus in on that particular detail. It is about job creation to a wealth attraction model, which is what the gold card and the platinum card would be, is about attracting wealth. Because as Ron pointed out, in one, it's 800,000 or 1.05 million. If they're in a rural project, the 800,000 versus the 1 million or potentially 5 million if the platinum card ever sees the light of day. But both are contributions versus an investment. So one is an investment with job creation. The other is just wealth attraction with a monetary contribution, but no job creation for the U.S. So you have to look at the pros and cons of the overall program. I do like what you had just said, Caroline. A bird in the hand is worth more than two in the bush. Okay, you got to take what you have right now and not what might come down the road. And so if you look at this shift, this may be where the immigration system is going to shift to, is one of wealth attraction as opposed to job creation. Time will tell. We're only in the first 10 minutes of a 3-hour movie in this administration, and there's still a lot yet to see. But more so, it is about certainty. If you want to be able to arrive in the US anytime in the next couple of years, this is where you need to be, is in the EB-5 program. The gold card program may be an attractive program, and the platinum one more so for those ultra high net worth individuals who are looking for that tax relief, and they'll be allowed to stay more than just 120 days per year, which is under the current substantial presence test, and they'll be able to stay 270 days a year. That one, it'll be interesting to see how they're going to pull that one off without some regulatory and statutory change.
Hmm.
But agreed with Ron. Really, I'd be putting my money on EB-5 right now. It is
Literally.
literally.
Enrique, my recollection in the 1980s was there were many attempts to create an immigration program based on a pure investment. And it always failed because the sense of Congress is we don't want people to be able to buy their way into America. And that was the genesis of what became the employment creation visa, the EB-5 visa, which is creating jobs by making an investment rather than just making an investment. Do you think that sense of Congress is still the same, that there's some antipathy to the concept of just buying your way into America?
I think it may be, Ron, great question, because it reminds me of Senator Dianne Feinstein. When I was in the U.S. Senate serving as an advisor for Marco Rubio and John McCain back in 2013, I distinctly recall Dianne Feinstein pushing back against any programs where individuals would be able to get further ahead in the process by virtue of money as opposed to merit. Okay. I now that, may she rest in peace, Senator Feinstein has moved on. I think that there is a new generation in the Senate and in the House who are perceiving and looking at immigration differently. And this is why I'm saying it's an inflection point between the job creation model and the wealth attraction model. And then I think that they're more amenable to a system which will allow people to come in and buy. How much the American public will tolerate something like that? You have to look at your influencers as a perfect example of how our society has shifted.
What
Okay.
does Taylor Swift think of the gold card, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. And so you look at this and how, where are they investing? Younger people are not investing in 401ks apparently. Okay. As much as they as our generation has. So is it a generational shift and a political mind shift as well? So great point you raised, Ron. I think time will tell over the course of the next year, because I also think that the election cycle is going to impact all of
Well, I
this.
want to hear
I
from Ira on this.
I have to say I have a very different view of all this.
Yeah, does
Um,
this, we've kind of like
uh,
something that's
for,
sort of pure and, done something we shouldn't with it? How does it
no,
feel to you,
I
Ira?
mean, yeah, I think this was a totally ill-conceived typical kind of Lutnick talking to the president, giving him a list of the problems that were involved in EB-5, some of which were justified. And then other people saying, well, why can't people just give money to the government and we'll have a program? And then other people coming in, probably like Miller, saying, well, if you do this, then we got to take the visas from somewhere, and perfectly happy to take them from anywhere as long as less people come into the country. I think that's kind of the sequence of really what happened here. And there are two things about the program. First of all, it's horrible, the idea that people can just buy their way in. And it's interesting because it's contradictory to what Rubio and others have done in pointing to certain countries that are letting people buy their way into those countries and punishing those countries for allowing people to buy their way in, but at the same time saying you can buy your way into the United States. Now, that may be an America first kind of policy, but it seems to me that it says something about the morality of allowing people simply just who have money to come into the country. The program, the good part about all of this discussion about the gold card is that they pointed to certain deficiencies in the program. One is the obvious one, which is speed. All of us have problems. Somebody files an application and they have to wait years. And I think what the president was saying and what Lutnick was saying is, why should you wait? You just, put in the money and we'll give you a card. That points to the kind of thing that we should be looking at in trying to extend RIA. I mean, in other words, we should be creative in coming up with a process that looks a lot faster than what we have now, because it's, we all agree it's kind of ridiculous that you'll put your money in and then wait 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in order to get a green card. And that's not even talking about the backlog in the visas. That's just talking about the processing by immigration. So I think one of the things, if we were kind of selling the system and agreeing with some of the things about the gold card, we should say, we have to come up with a system where the government adjudicates these applications much faster. The second thing is that we also have to come up with a system that says, and that was the idea, I think, with the $5 million card. We have to come up with a system where you're not taking numbers from other categories. In other words, for, I don't know, now 40 years, right, since 1990, we have not had 35 years since 1990. We have not had an increase in one more visa. And Enrique can tell you all about this. When he worked up in the Senate, we haven't had an increase of one more visa for 35 years. So the gold card points to another deficiency that I think we should be pushing very hard, which is if you want to have a successful investment program, you need many more visas. And
it's about
I was just
about
go ahead.
Please.
I was just going to say, most people think there are 10,000 visas available, but those 10,000 visas actually are divided up between the individual investor and their family members. So there's actually less visas available every year for investors. And the bigger the families, the less visas there are available for the principal investor. So people need to understand that. I can agree with Lutnick and the president in saying, we need a system that works faster. Your proposal, I don't think, is the one to do it. And I think we should be talking to members of Congress about how to get RIA, extended, but not only extended, which is, we just keep talking about the extension, but how to make it even better. And I think we can make it better.
And permanent. So we're all talking about, and we're at an inflection point. And we're, maybe the gold card would address some problems, but it also highlights some others, like, processing and delays and the need for numbers reform, right? And all of us have participated in advocacy on that front in various meaningful ways. So let's talk about the political landscape here. Yeah, Tom,
Right.
I mean, can we do this? Can we
I
pull this
just
off?
want to add, I actually, from a business perspective, I
Yeah,
think the goal is an opportunity. I think I really do.
the
I mean,
opportunities.
it's an opportunity because I think one, for a lot of the reasons everybody mentioned. First of all, it gave it a lot of awareness to the public. And I think the fact that this one is by a Visa, the gold card, I think it enhances the credibility of create jobs. And I think it does open up the discussion for the points that everybody on the panel was making, and gives us an opportunity to go advocate for this. I I I actually don't think it's bad. I mean, I also think, the first time it was mentioned, you'd heard Lutnick use the word fraud. You'll have never heard that word used ever again because I think he heard from bipartisans on both sides of the aisle that this program really does work now, and I think the message is that it's working. So I actually think this is an opportunity. I don't know. I don't think we're going to get an extension beyond, you know, September of 27. But I do think there's an opportunity here to extend the grandfathering to September of 27 and then promote, the additional extension. And again, you got to remember the economic environment that we're in. There's a need for capital now. There's a shortage of capital. And when you start getting your legislators and representatives and telling that to the administrators and stuff, I think there's going to be a push to enhance the program, or at least there's an opportunity to do that. There's a great story to tell, and the gold card helps us tell that story.